Here's another story we've been tracking closely, the turmoil in Myanmar. It is going from bad to worse. More than 2 years back, the military junta in Myanmar pulled off a coup. The generals removed the democratically elected government and they reigned supreme, largely unchallenged. In the past 3 weeks, though, the picture has changed. Rebels are fighting soldiers and defeating them. They're gaining ground. Things are so intense that New Delhi is now concerned. India has released a travel advisory asking citizens to avoid non-essential travel to Myanmar, meaning if it's not very important, avoid going there. What about the Indians who are already there? Well, they've been asked to be careful, take precautions, avoid traveling to troubled areas and register with the Indian mission in Yangon. And how many Indians are there in Myanmar? Not very many. According to one claim, there are just 2,000 odd Indians in the country, but there are significant Indian investments at stake here. India is involved in more than a dozen infrastructure projects in Myanmar. The most significant one is the Sittwe port. This is a deep water port. It was built by India in Myanmar's Rakhine state. The project is worth over $400 million. Before this offensive, bilateral trade was also expanding. It had grown to $1.5 billion. And then there is foreign investment. Almost $2 billion have been invested from India into Myanmar. The rebel offensive puts all of these investments at risk. And this advisory is a signal, an official acknowledgement of the trouble brewing in the country. The losses are mounting for the military. So far, they've taken control of over 100 outposts. The rebels have taken control. 2 days ago, there was another major offensive. Again, the rebels came out on top. They captured 18 soldiers and 40 weapons, 40. The momentum is with the rebels. Their offensive has been swift and effective, and the military looks helpless. A few days ago, there was talk of a counter-offensive, but it's yet to take shape. The military has conducted some airstrikes, but they haven't been able to stop the rebels. The lost territories are yet to be reclaimed, and the troops are surrendering in large numbers without putting up a fight. Let me show you some numbers from last week. Since the rebels began their offensive, more than 400 soldiers have surrendered. They belong to the military and the police force. Reports say they also gave up their weapons. So the troops seem to be reluctant to fight. In some cases, it's quite obvious. The rebels have released some pictures of soldiers who've recently surrendered. The rebels say they gave travel expenses to these soldiers. They allowed them to return to their families. And if these claims are true, the military is in serious trouble. This would mean that their troops have lost faith in the generals. They're choosing money over fighting, and the rebels are happy to pay them off. Those who did not get any protection tried to flee, many ending up in India. In the last few weeks, at least 70 soldiers from Myanmar have come to India, and this is the official figure, so there could be more undetected ones. They entered through the northeastern states of Manipur and Mizoram. New Delhi managed to send them back. But as long as this offensive continues, the risk of a bigger influx remains. Experts say Myanmar's military faces an existential crisis.
Clearly, things are no longer sustainable for the Myanmar army. At some point, it's either going to have to give up very significant parts of territory, or it might even be pushed to potentially make even bigger concessions. So the Myanmar military, I think, is facing an existential crisis at this point.
The writing is on the wall. If the military loses control of Myanmar, the border with India could become more volatile, with more refugees probably showing up. It's a crisis that India cannot afford to ignore.